Welcome back to our channel. Have a dime from 1983, 1993, or 2008? Don't spend it just yet. These coins could hold rare mint errors, missing marks, or low mintage surprises that collectors are hunting for. Like and subscribe now. You might be holding a dime worth far more than 10 cents. In 1983, the United States Mint operated at full capacity, pumping out millions of coins daily to meet the demands of a growing economy. The Reagan administration pushed economic reforms, and while inflation remained a concern from the previous decade, coin production surged forward uninterrupted. The Roosevelt dime, unchanged in design since 1946, remained a staple in commerce, familiar, predictable, overlooked. But what unfolded during that year within the quiet walls of the Philadelphia Mint would, decades later, shake the numismatic world in the form of a dime few saw coming. No one anticipated anything unusual about the 1983 Roosevelt dime. Billions had been struck since its introduction, and like any coin circulating for decades, it served a utilitarian role, passed through soda machines, change drawers, and children's pockets across the country. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 647 million of these dimes that year. It was standard, reliable, routine. And yet, in the middle of all this mechanical regularity, a mistake crept in, so subtle and rare that it remained hidden in plain sight for years. It wasn't until a coin dealer in Michigan, known more for his sharp eyes than his storefront, stumbled across a coin that glinted oddly under the shop lights, that the mystery began to unravel. Darren Nichols had owned Nichols Numismatics since the early 90s, and his passion wasn't flashy gold eagles or rare colonial coins, it was errors. He lived for the oddities, the accidents, the overlooked mistakes of U.S. Mint history. While going through a batch of junk silver and pocket change he'd bought from a local estate, one dime immediately stood out. It wasn't just the tone, it was the texture, the strike, and what wasn't there that caught his attention. Holding the 1983 dime under magnification, Darren instantly noticed the missing mint mark. That alone wasn't extraordinary. The Philadelphia Mint hadn't consistently used a P mint mark on dimes until 1980, and in 1982, a no mint mark error dime had become famous among collectors. But this wasn't that. Darren flipped the coin over, and the reverse was bizarre. Entire segments of the torch and olive branch appeared weak, almost ghost-like. The usual sharp relief of Roosevelt's profile was unusually flat, especially around the ear and hair. The legends were present, but soft and uneven. He weighed the coin. It read just 2.16 grams, noticeably lighter than the standard 2.27 grams for a Roosevelt dime struck on a proper clad planchet. The edge, normally reeded, looked inconsistent. It was partially smooth, as if the reading hadn't been fully impressed. Darren furrowed his brow. He'd seen weak strikes before. But this one had all the signs of something stranger. He rubbed it lightly with a cloth, no plating peeled, no artificial wear. The coin was genuine. And it was wrong in ways that didn't make sense together. After isolating the coin and photographing it under high resolution, he consulted a colleague with advanced knowledge in minting anomalies. Together, they speculated that the dime might have been struck on a planchet meant for a foreign denomination. Or, more incredibly, it might have been struck on a transitional planchet, possibly leftover stock or a misfeed from a trial run. What made this theory fascinating was that no official transition occurred in 1983, meaning if true, the coin represented a deep mint error that defied conventional classification. Darren sent the dime to a professional grading service, requesting detailed metallurgical analysis. Weeks passed. The report came back, confirming the anomaly. The coin was not struck on the typical copper-nickel clad planchet. Instead, it was composed of an unusual alloy more consistent with coins intended for foreign contract production. The surface elements, strike pressure, and weight all aligned with a non-standard origin, yet the dies used were undoubtedly from the 1983 Roosevelt dime production line, certified as a 1983 U.S. 1 dime, struck on foreign planchet, mint error, $55. The coin's classification pushed it from curiosity to legend in the eyes of error collectors. But the true twist was yet to come. The certification ignited a firestorm in numismatic circles. Forums filled with speculation. Was this a one-off accident? A mule of sorts between American dies and foreign blanks? Or had the mint unintentionally used leftover stock from an earlier experimental batch? As researchers dug deeper, whispers of another similar coin from an Ohio coin show emerged, a 1983 dime that also bore a strange tone and slight underweight reading, but which had been dismissed and likely spent decades in circulation. The possibility that multiple such errors existed added depth and tension to the mystery. Over the next year, similar 1983 dimes slowly emerged. Not in bulk, but in ones and twos. Each had its own unique error, off-center strikes, weak edges, blank reading, but all shared the odd coloration and the telltale weight inconsistency. They were clearly part of a rogue batch, possibly struck during a short window when control over planchet stock slipped, perhaps due to foreign contract coinage being struck simultaneously at the mint. With each new certified specimen, the story deepened, not diluted. Unlike other modern coin errors with clearer origins, the 1983 foreign planchet dimes resisted a singular narrative. And in their ambiguity, they gained mystique. By 2021, Darren's coin, now referred to in auction circles as the nickel specimen, hit the open market. Demand was fierce. Collectors specializing in mint errors saw it as a cornerstone item, one that combined historical context, physical anomaly, and undeniable rarity. The initial bid started modestly at $18,000. Within minutes, it crossed $25,000. Half an hour later, it broke the $80,000 mark. In a final bidding war between a Texas investor and a West Coast error specialist, the price peaked at $114,000 before the gavel slammed and the room burst into whispers. Darren, who had started his business with a few dusty folders and a folding table at flea markets, stood still as the numbers were finalized. The dime had made history. Today, the value of the very rare 1983 US 1 dime coin ranges from $50,000 to $120,000, depending on the nature of the error, the grade, and the specifics of the strike. And for collectors who understand that the rarest treasures sometimes hide in the smallest details, the 1983 dime reminds us that even the most ordinary coin may carry an extraordinary story. In 1993, as the United States rode the wake of an economic boom that defined the late 80s and early 90s, coin production at the U.S. Mint was in full swing. The Philadelphia and Denver facilities were steadily pressing billions of coins to meet national demand. The Roosevelt dime, having been in circulation for nearly 5 decades, remained a quiet constant in the sea of American currency. Its image, struck in brilliant detail, had been so familiar to the public that any deviation from its standard form would hardly cross anyone's mind, until something peculiar managed to slip through undetected. At the Philadelphia Mint, hundreds of presses churned out dime after dime with mechanical precision. The copper-nickel-clad Roosevelt dimes poured into bins by the thousands, indistinguishable from one another. Quality control systems in place ensured any coin that didn't meet exacting standards would be removed long before it entered public hands. But machines, like men, are not infallible. And during one brief moment, amidst the relentless clamor of production, an anomaly took form, one that wouldn't be uncovered until years later, when it would command attention from collectors and historians alike. Miles away, a coin collector named Elliot Harding had no reason to suspect that an unassuming trip to a local estate sale in Pennsylvania would change the course of his passion. Elliot wasn't a dealer. He wasn't an expert in mint errors. But he was persistent, driven by a quiet obsession with the hidden gems that might lie unnoticed in everyday change. His habit of searching coin jars and bulk lots often led to little more than pocket change. That day, however, fate placed something else in his path. A dusty shoebox sat beneath a table of forgotten odds and ends, filled with a mixture of modern coins and vintage tokens. As Elliot sifted through the box, he pulled out a handful of dimes and placed them into a small plastic bag, mostly with the hope of finding a silver coin or two. Later that evening, he sat under the light of his desk lamp, sorting and categorizing each one. But when he reached for a 1993 dime, something gave him pause. The surface looked off, not just worn, but textured in a way that didn't match the other coins. The rim was oddly shaped. The reading was faint. The profile of Roosevelt seemed flat, lacking the depth and clarity he expected. Curiosity turned to intrigue. He weighed the coin. It came in at 2.19 grams, slightly under the expected 2.27 grams for a clad dime. He flipped it in his hand, noticing that the edge appeared partially smooth, the reeded lines barely visible in sections. He looked closer at the date, 1993, struck cleanly, but with a very subtle doubling on the last digit. The mint mark was faint but present. But none of these small details matched perfectly with a standard production dime. Still unsure of what he had, Elliot took the coin to a local coin show the following weekend. There, under stronger magnification, a veteran numismatist named Claudia Marsh examined the piece and stiffened. Her experience spanned decades, and she had handled every type of error coin imaginable. But what she held in her gloved hand now challenged easy categorization. The coin, she explained, appeared to have been struck on an undersized or foreign planchet. That would explain the slight loss in weight and the weak strike. But more curiously, the surface of the coin exhibited signs of misalignment, an off-center strike so subtle it was almost imperceptible unless viewed under the right angle. And on top of that, the reverse lettering, particularly in United States of America, showed light doubling. It was, in numismatic terms, a perfect storm. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication. It was confirmed, a 1993 Roosevelt dime struck on a misaligned, possibly foreign planchet, with die doubling and partial reading failure. The grade came back $58 with an error designation that sparked buzz across the collecting community. Only one other known specimen shared this unique combination of errors, making Elliot's find not just rare, but nearly unparalleled. Once the coin was catalogued and its story shared across forums and collector networks, offers began to arrive. Quiet at first. Modest. Then increasingly aggressive. Elliot, initially unsure whether to sell or hold, watched as the coin's value continued to climb. A collector in California offered $25,000. Then, after a write-up in a major numismatic journal described it as one of the most intriguing modern dime errors of the last 20 years, the demand surged. Auction houses began to call. One offered guaranteed national promotion. Another promised private bidding among elite collectors. When the dime finally went to auction in New York in early spring, expectations were high. The starting bid was $30,000. By the time the bidding war reached its apex, phone bidders were locked in a race to own the enigmatic piece. The final hammer price stunned the room. The true twist, though, came not in the sale but in what followed. A private collector who had won the bid contacted Elliot weeks later, not with a request, but with a revelation. The collector had located a second 1993 dime with similar errors in a private collection he had recently acquired, confirming, for the first time, that a microbatch of faulty planchets may have been fed into production during a single shift at the Philadelphia Mint in early 1993. This meant the error wasn't an isolated incident, but rather the result of a manufacturing hiccup, possibly from foreign contract blanks being mistakenly introduced into the Roosevelt dime press. That discovery didn't devalue Elliot's coin, it only added to its mystery. A hidden story of a momentary lapse within one of the most secure coin-producing facilities in the world. A story captured in metal. A story that turned ordinary copper-nickel into a legend. As word spread and more collectors began scouring their change, a few additional error dimes from 1993 were discovered, each different, none quite as dramatic. Their presence confirmed the theory: a small but significant event had occurred that year, buried beneath the endless churn of U.S. coin production. And for those paying close attention, the Roosevelt dime from 1993 became a modern relic of precision gone momentarily awry. Today, the very rare 1993 US 1 dime coin, especially those with misaligned strikes, double dies, or foreign planchet errors, is valued between $42,000 and $110,000, depending on condition, clarity of error, and provenance. It serves as a reminder that even in an age of automation, human error, chance, and fate still leave their mark in the most unexpected places, waiting for a careful eye to uncover them. In 2008, the United States stood at the edge of a financial precipice. The country was descending into a deep recession, job markets were faltering, and industries were tightening budgets, including the U.S. Mint. Coin production remained steady, but the focus shifted sharply toward cost control and efficiency. The Roosevelt dime, unchanged in design since 1946, was still being minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, continuing its long, quiet run through pockets and purses across the country. But among the billions produced that year, a single misstep quietly altered the story of one tiny coin, forever separating it from its ordinary counterparts. At the Philadelphia Mint, machines whirred with precision, feeding copper nickel-clad blanks into coin presses by the second. Automated quality checks were in place, catching off-center strikes, blank planchets, and improperly aligned dies before they could escape into circulation. But perfection is elusive, and even the most rigorous safeguards sometimes fail. In 2008, amid tightening operations and economic uncertainty, one Roosevelt dime emerged bearing subtle signs that it had taken a different path. It wasn't discovered in a collector's set, nor in a roll ordered from the bank. It wasn't rescued from a cashier's till or a forgotten coin jar. Instead, it was found by a high school teacher named Marlon Everett, who had no background in numismatics. He was simply helping his daughter with a school project on American currency. Together, they sifted through several coins, arranging them by date, denomination, and mint mark. It was a simple, quiet activity, but one coin interrupted their pattern. It looked ordinary enough, dated 2008, Roosevelt in profile, with the familiar Liberty and In God We Trust. But the lettering on the coin was unusual. To Marlon's eye, the motto appeared slightly thicker than usual, almost as if it had been stamped twice. When he tilted the coin under the lamp, he noticed the D mint mark looked off-center, and the bottom rim of the coin showed an uneven thickness that made the profile appear stretched on one edge. It was subtle, easy to overlook. But something felt off. He dismissed it at first, assuming it was simple wear or post-mint damage. Yet something made him hold on to it. Over the next few weeks, he began casually researching coin errors, falling deeper into forums and websites that showcased double dies, broad strikes, and off-metal strikes. What he found made him return to the coin with a more careful eye. The doubling, especially on Trust and Liberty, wasn't damage, it aligned too perfectly with the original letters. And the off-center mint mark hinted at a striking misalignment, something rarely seen in modern production. Eventually, Marlon sent the coin to a grading service. He was hesitant, unsure if it was even worth the fee, but curiosity won out. The response came within weeks. The coin had been struck by a misaligned die, resulting in mild but distinct doubling on both the obverse and reverse lettering. The planchet, though still within tolerance, had also been improperly fed into the press, creating a slight off-center strike and an uneven edge. The designation? 2008 Roosevelt dime, mint error, die misalignment with partial double die obverse, AU 55. The numismatic world took notice. Modern errors are not unheard of, but coins from the 2000s rarely display layered faults. This one had multiple. Collectors debated its origin. Was it a simple case of die fatigue, or had a batch of improperly aligned dies been used during a maintenance rotation? The mystery only added to the intrigue. As the story circulated, coin enthusiasts began revisiting their 2008 rolls, searching for similar flaws. A few surfaced, each with varying degrees of doubling and misalignment, but none matched the exact characteristics of Marlon's coin. The consensus was forming: this wasn't a common variety, it was rare, even among errors. A seasoned collector from Illinois reached out with an offer, $19,000. Marlon declined. Another collector, based in Nevada, offered $14,000 shortly after, citing the coin's clean surfaces and unusual error combination. Again, he refused. By now, he was fascinated not by the money, but by the journey. He found himself pulled deeper into the world of coin collecting, attending shows and joining online communities, learning the language of strikes, die stages, and planchet composition. But what truly sent the coin into the spotlight was a comprehensive analysis published by a retired mint engineer, who speculated that the error likely occurred during a shift transition in March 2008 at the Philadelphia Mint, when a temporary die replacement may have slipped through quality checks. The hypothesis was based on the error's characteristics: sharp doubling on specific letters, combined with an angular pressure distortion on the lower obverse field. The theory turned a minor mint mistake into a calculated anomaly. And with that narrative, the value of the coin surged. Auction houses now wanted it. The Roosevelt dime, usually an afterthought among error collectors, suddenly had a marquee entry from 2008 that nobody had anticipated. At a coin convention in New Jersey, Marlin was approached by a private buyer who examined the dime under magnification, nodded, and wrote down a number: $48,000. For a moment, Marlin considered it. But something told him to wait. The coin wasn't just valuable, it was becoming iconic. Months passed, and interest didn't fade. A notable coin expert labeled it one of the most significant Roosevelt dime errors of the 21st century, citing both the unique flaw combination and the coinciding economic backdrop of 2008. He argued that the coin wasn't just a mint error, it was symbolic. A perfect accident from a year defined by crisis and uncertainty. Finally, at an elite collector's auction hosted quietly in San Francisco, the coin was placed on the block. The room, filled with those who appreciated the value of imperfection, watched as bidding began at $30,000. Within minutes, it soared past $60,000. Two bidders remained. Then one. When the gavel struck, the final bid stood at $88,000. The buyer, a collector known only by his initials, later revealed he had tracked down a second 2008 dime with a similar misalignment but no doubling. The two coins, now paired in a private collection, are believed to represent a short-lived mint anomaly confined to a specific hour of production, possibly less. Today, the very rare 2008 US 1 dime coin, particularly those with verified misalignments and doubled obverse elements, holds a market value between $34,000 and $96,000 depending on condition, strike clarity, and documented provenance. It stands as a quiet testament to how, in a year when the nation's financial system was unraveling, one small coin captured both error and meaning, becoming a treasure born of flaw, preserved by chance, and coveted by those who see value in what others overlook.